The massive stone arena stretched high into the purple sky of planet Zorthak 7. Thousands of alien creatures filled the seats, making loud noises and waving their arms, tentacles, and claws in excitement. The air smelled like metal and fear mixed with the strange foods that different species ate while watching the fights. Jinwoo sat in the prisoner section with heavy chains around his wrists and ankles. He was 25 years old but looked younger because he was thin from eating bad food for months. His black hair hung over his dark eyes and his clothes were torn and dirty from sleeping on cold metal floors. The other human prisoners sat near him, but nobody talked much anymore. They had all given up hope except Jinwoo. The arena master was a huge reptile creature called Vorth. He stood 12 feet tall with green scales that looked like armor. His voice was so deep it made the ground shake when he spoke. Vorth loved making humans fight because the crowd always laughed when humans got hurt badly or died in terrible ways. Today was going to be special because Kral Thon was fighting. Kral Thon was famous across 3 star systems as the greatest warrior who never lost a fight. He had killed over 200 opponents in different arenas. The crowd loved him because he was so strong and mean. He stood 9 feet tall with bright red skin and muscles bigger than tree trunks. His 4 arms were each as thick as Jinwoo's entire body. The alien crowd started chanting Kral Thon name when they heard he was fighting today. They threw rotten food and garbage at the human prisoners while making disgusting sounds with their mouths. Some aliens had traveled from distant worlds just to watch humans die. They thought humans were the weakest creatures in the galaxy, good only for cleaning toilets and carrying heavy things. Vorth walked to the center of the arena and raised his clawed hands. The crowd became quiet immediately. Everyone knew the show was about to begin. The arena had sand on the floor, but Jinwoo could see dark stains everywhere from old blood that never washed away completely. The walls were 30 feet high, so nobody could climb out, even if they tried. The ceiling was open, so everyone could see the purple sky and the 3 moons of this strange world. Holographic displays showed numbers that kept changing as aliens bet money on how the fight would end. Nobody bet on Jinwoo winning. Nobody even bet on Jinwoo lasting more than 1 minute. The guards came to get Jinwoo from the prisoner section. They were big insect-like creatures with 6 legs and sharp claws that could cut through metal. They grabbed Jinwoo roughly and dragged him toward the fighting area. Other human prisoners watched with sad eyes because they knew they would never see him alive again. As they walked, Jinwoo looked around carefully at everything. He noticed where the guards stood and how they held their weapons. He saw which parts of the arena wall were older and might be weaker. He remembered everything his grandfather had taught him about watching and waiting for the right moment. His grandfather had been a fighter too, back on Earth in the mountains, where the air was thin and the ground was hard. His family had been warriors for hundreds of years before space travel was invented. They knew secrets about fighting that most people had forgotten. Jinwoo's body was different from other humans because he grew up in heavy gravity, but he never told anyone about this. The guards removed Jinwoo's chains and pushed him into the center of the sandy arena. The crowd started making loud noises again and pointing at him. Some aliens were taking pictures with strange devices. Others were eating things. That looked disgusting and smelled worse. Above him, the holographic displays now showed his picture next to Kral Thon's picture. The difference was shocking. Jinwoo looked like a skinny child next to the massive red warrior. The betting odds kept changing, but they all showed the same thing. Jinwoo was going to die very quickly and very badly. Vorth's voice boomed across the arena again. Today we have special entertainment, he announced. The great Kral Thon will fight this pathetic human creature. The human species is known for being weak and cowardly. They break easily and make funny sounds when they are hurt. The crowd laughed so loud it hurt Jinwoo's ears, but Jinwoo just stood quietly in the center of the arena. He closed his eyes for a moment. and remembered his grandfather's final words. A true warrior never shows his strength until the moment he needs it. Let your enemies think you are weak until it is too late for them to escape. When Jin Woo opened his eyes again, he felt calm and ready. His grandfather's spirit was with him, and he knew what he had to do. The crowd was still laughing and making jokes about how quickly he would die. They had no idea what was about to happen. The arena doors on the other side began to open slowly with a loud grinding sound of metal on stone. The crowd noise became even louder as they waited for their hero to appear. Steam came out of the doorway and the ground started shaking with heavy footsteps. Kral Thon was coming. Jin Woo stood perfectly still in the center of the arena sand. His hands hung loose at his sides and his breathing was slow and steady. He looked like he was already defeated before the fight even started. The aliens in the crowd pointed at him and made more jokes about weak humans, but inside Jin Woo's mind was sharp and focused like a blade. He was remembering every lesson his grandfather had taught him about fighting. Every movement, every technique, every secret that had been passed down through generations of warriors. The knowledge was there waiting for the right moment to be used. The footsteps got louder and louder until the entire arena was shaking. Then Kral Thon stepped into the light and the crowd went completely crazy with excitement. The greatest warrior in 3 star systems had arrived to destroy another weak human. Jin Woo smiled just a little bit because he knew something that nobody else in the arena knew. He knew that everything was about to change forever. Kral Thon entered the arena like death itself, walking on 4 legs. The ground shook with each step he took. His massive red body gleamed under the arena lights, and every muscle moved like liquid power. His 4 arms swung as he walked, and each hand was big enough to crush Jin Woo's entire head. The crowd exploded with cheers and screams. They loved their champion more than anything in the galaxy. Some aliens were crying with joy just from seeing him. Others threw flowers and expensive gifts into the arena. The noise was so loud that the air itself seemed to vibrate. Kral Thon stopped in the middle of the arena and flexed all 4 arms at the same time. His muscles grew even bigger and the crowd went wild with excitement. He turned slowly, in a circle, so everyone could see his perfect warrior body. The scars on his skin told stories of hundreds of victories. Each scar meant another dead opponent. Look at this tiny insect. Kral Thon's voice was like thunder rolling across the mountains. His words made the arena walls shake and dust fall from the ceiling. I have crushed warriors from 12 different worlds. I have torn apart champions who were 10 times stronger than this pathetic creature. He pointed one massive finger at Jin Woo, who still stood quietly in the center of the sand. The human looked even smaller now that the giant warrior was close. His torn clothes and thin body made him look like a broken toy. Next to the mighty Kral Thon, the betting displays showed new numbers. Now, instead of betting on who would win, the aliens were betting on how Jin Woo would die. Some thought Kral Thon would rip his arms off. Others believed the champion would crush his head like a grape. A few aliens bet that Jin Woo would die of fear before Kral Thon even touched him. "What is your name, little creature?" Kral Thon asked as he walked in a slow circle around Jin Woo. "I like to know the names of my victims before I send them to the afterlife. It makes the killing more personal and fun." Jin Woo said nothing. He just stood there with his dark eyes following every movement the giant made. His grandfather had taught him that talking too much before a fight was a sign of weakness. Real warriors saved their energy for fighting, not for making speeches. This made Kral Thon angry. "When I ask you a question, you answer," Kral Thon roared. His voice was so loud that some aliens in the crowd covered their ears. "I am Kral Thon the Destroyer. I have killed more opponents than you have days in your short, miserable life." Still, Jin Woo remained silent. The crowd started chanting for Kral Thon to hurt the human. They wanted to see blood and pain. They had paid good money for entertainment, and the silent human was boring them, the champion. heard their demands and smiled with all his sharp teeth showing. "Very well," Kral Thon said. "If you will not speak, then you will scream." He reached out with one enormous hand and slapped Jin Woo across the face. The sound echoed through the arena like a gunshot. Jin Woo flew through the air and landed hard in the sand 10 feet away. Blood ran from his nose and his left cheek was already swelling. The crowd cheered louder than before. Jin Woo rolled over slowly and got back to his feet. He wiped the blood from his nose with the back of his hand, but still said nothing. His dark eyes remained calm like deep water, even though pain shot through his entire head. "Dance for us, little human," Kral Thon commanded. He walked over and hit Jin Woo with the back of his hand this time. The human tumbled across the sand again, leaving a trail of blood where he rolled. "Show us how your weak species moves when they are afraid." Some aliens in the crowd were laughing so hard they fell out of their seats. Others were taking pictures and videos to share with friends on distant worlds. They had never seen anything so funny as a human trying to fight a real warrior. Jin Woo stood up again. His legs were shaky and his vision was blurred, but he kept his feet. Under him, he knew that falling down and staying down would mean certain death. His grandfather had taught him that a warrior fights until his last breath, even when victory seems impossible. "You are tougher than most humans," Kral Thon admitted as he grabbed Jin Woo by the throat with one massive hand. He lifted the human off the ground until Jin Woo's feet were kicking in the air. "Most of your species dies after the first hit, but you keep standing up." The champion's grip tightened around Jin Woo's neck, making it hard to breathe. The human hands clawed weakly at the massive fingers, but they might as well have been trying to break steel cables with paper. "I could end this now," Kral Thon told the cheering crowd. "But where is the fun in that? I want to hear him beg for mercy. I want to see tears in his eyes before I crush his weak bones." He threw Jin Woo across the arena like he weighed nothing. The human hit the stone wall hard and fell to the sand in a heap. Several aliens in the crowd started a betting pool on how many bones were already broken. The displays showed that most thought at least 5 ribs were cracked, but Jin Woo pushed himself up on his hands and knees. His whole body hurt, and blood dripped from several cuts on his face. Still, he refused to stay down. He got back to his feet and faced the giant warrior again. Kral Thon was impressed, despite himself. Most opponents were crying and begging by now. This human just kept getting up like some kind of machine that could not be stopped. The champion decided he needed to break the human spirit completely before finishing him off. "Your species disgusts me," Kral Thon announced to the crowd. "Humans have no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. They are soft and weak, like the creatures we feed to our pets on my homeworld. They should not even be allowed to exist in our galaxy." The crowd agreed loudly with cheers and applause. Jin Woo listened to every word, but his face showed no emotion. He was thinking about his grandfather and the stories of ancient Earth warriors who faced impossible odds. These men had fought against enemies much stronger than themselves, and sometimes they found ways to win, not through strength alone, but through intelligence, speed, and perfect timing. The moment was coming soon. Jin Woo could feel it in his bones. His grandfather's spirit was telling him to wait just a little longer. The enemy was getting careless and overconfident. That was when mistakes happened, and when a smaller fighter could strike like lightning. Kral Thon raised all 4 arms to accept the worship of the crowd. He had humiliated the human perfectly, and now it was time for the killing blow. The audience was ready to see blood and death. They wanted the grand finale that would end this entertainment. But as the giant champion turned back toward Jin Woo, something had changed in the human eyes. The calm darkness was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Something that made Kral Thon feel uncomfortable for the first time in years. It was the look of a predator who had finished studying his prey. Kral Thon walked toward Jin Woo with the slow, confident steps of a predator who knew his prey could not escape. The massive red warrior was enjoying every moment of this fight. He loved the way the crowd cheered his name and the way other aliens looked at him with fear and respect. This was what he lived for. The champion had fought in arenas across the galaxy for 15 years. He had killed warriors from dozens of different worlds. Some had been bigger than him, some had been faster, and few had even been smarter. But none of them had been able to defeat his combination of size, strength, and pure savage violence. Humans were always the easiest opponents. He had fought 12 humans before today, and they all died the same way. They started brave and defiant, but quickly became scared and desperate when they realized how outmatched they were. Then they would beg and cry and make promises they could never keep before he crushed their fragile bones. This Jin Woo seemed a little different, because he refused to speak or show fear, but Kral Thon knew that inside the human was just as terrified as all the others. Soon the fear would break through and Jin Woo would start screaming like they always did. The crowd was chanting now, a rhythmic sound that made the entire arena vibrate. They wanted blood and death, and Kral Thon was about to give them exactly what they craved. He flexed his 4 massive arms and his muscles bulged like mountains of living rock. "Look at him," the champion called out to the audience. "See how he stands there trying to look brave, but his legs are shaking with fear. His face is pale with terror. He knows that death is coming for him, and there is nothing he can do to stop it." Many aliens in the crowd were recording everything with their devices. They wanted to share this moment with friends and family on distant worlds. The death of a human was always popular entertainment, especially when Kral Thon was doing the killing. The champion reached the spot where Jin Woo stood waiting. The human looked even smaller up close. His shoulders barely reached Kral Thon's chest, and his thin arms looked like twigs that could snap in a strong wind. The contrast between them was almost comical. "I am going to break you." Slowly, Kral Thon promised, his voice low and menacing, so only Jin Woo could hear. "First I will crush your left arm bone by bone, then your right arm, then your legs. Finally, I will squeeze your skull until it pops like a ripe fruit." Jin Woo said nothing. His dark eyes remained fixed on the giant's face, showing no emotion at all. This lack of reaction was starting to annoy Kral Thon, who was used to seeing terror in his opponent's eyes by this point in a fight. The betting displays now showed odds on which body part would be broken first. Most aliens were betting on the arms since Kral Thon usually started there. The champion saw the displays and smiled. He loved giving the crowd exactly what they expected. "Your species is pathetic." Kral Thon continued, speaking louder now so the entire arena could hear. "Humans have no place in our galaxy. You are too weak to be warriors, too stupid to be scholars, and too cowardly to be explorers. You exist only to serve your betters." He gestured toward the crowd, with one massive arm indicating all the different alien species watching the fight. These beings had built great civilizations, conquered star systems, and created technologies beyond human understanding. They were the true masters of the galaxy. And what have humans accomplished? Kral Thon asked mockingly. "You live on one small world in a remote corner of space. You have no empire, no great achievements, nothing that matters. You are insects pretending to be important." The crowd loved this speech. They cheered and applauded while making rude gestures at Jin Woo. Some threw more garbage into the arena, aiming for the human. A few aliens started chanting "death to humans" in their native languages, but Jin Woo continued to stand silently. His breathing was steady, and his posture remained upright despite all the injuries from earlier. His hands hung loose at his sides like he was completely relaxed. This strange calmness was beginning to disturb Kral Thon more than he wanted to admit. The champion decided it was time to end the talking and begin the real violence. He reached down with his upper right arm, planning to grab Jin Woo's left wrist. His fingers were long enough to wrap all the way around the human's thin arm, and his grip was strong, enough to shatter bone instantly. This was how all his human fights ended. But as Kral Thon bent forward, something changed in the air around them. The crowd noise seemed to fade into the background, and time appeared to slow down. Jin Woo's eyes were no longer empty and calm. There was something burning deep inside them now, something dangerous that the giant warrior had never seen before. For the first time in 15 years of fighting, Kral Thon felt a tiny whisper of doubt. The human muscles tensed slightly, and his weight shifted from both feet to his right foot. His left hand moved just an inch, but somehow that small movement sent a chill down Kral Thon's spine. The champion had spent his whole life reading opponents, and something about Jin Woo's body language was very wrong or very right, depending on how you looked at it. Kral Thon hesitated for just a moment, his massive hand stopping inches from Jin Woo's wrist. In that instant of pause, he noticed things he had missed before. The human was not trembling with fear as he had thought. The slight movements Jin Woo made were not random or panicked. They were controlled and purposeful, like a machine preparing to activate. The scars on Jin Woo's hands were not from accidents or abuse. They were the kind of marks that came from years of hitting hard surfaces over and over again. His calluses were thick and positioned exactly where a trained fighter's would be. His stance looked casual, but was actually perfectly balanced. Most disturbing of all were Jin Woo's eyes. They were not the eyes of a victim waiting to die. They were the eyes of a predator who had been waiting patiently for his prey to come close enough. The darkness in them was not fear or despair. It was the controlled focus of someone who had trained his entire life for this exact moment. Kral Thon realized with growing horror that he had made a terrible mistake. He had assumed Jin Woo was just another weak human, but the creature standing before him was something else, entirely. This was not a frightened cargo pilot who had been captured by accident. This was a warrior who had been pretending to be harmless while studying every movement his opponent made. The champion tried to pull his hand back, but it was too late. Jin Woo had been waiting for this moment since the fight began. He had endured the pain and humiliation because his grandfather had taught him that patience was a warrior's greatest weapon. Now his enemy had finally come close enough and made himself vulnerable. The time for hiding was over. The real fight was about to begin, and Kral Thon was about to learn why humans had survived on one of the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy. They were not weak insects, as he believed. They were apex predators who had been holding back their true nature. Jin Woo smiled for the first time since entering the arena. It was not a friendly smile. Jin Woo's right hand moved like lightning striking from a clear sky. His fingers were locked together, forming a perfect spear point exactly the way his grandfather had shown him countless times. The movement was so fast that most creatures in the arena saw only a blur of motion. 25 years of training on Earth had built muscles like steel cables in Jin Woo's arms. The heavy gravity of his home world had made his bones dense as rock and his reflexes quick as a striking snake. Every day, since childhood, he had practiced the ancient fighting techniques passed down through generations of mountain warriors. Now all that preparation exploded into one perfect strike. Kral Thon. Massive red eyes went wide with shock as he realized the human was no longer the helpless victim he had been torturing. The giant champion tried to pull back, but his own enormous size worked against him. He was too close and moving too slowly to escape what was coming. Jin Woo's hand drove upward with all the power his earth-trained body could generate. The strike hit Kral Thon's skull just below the center of his forehead. The point of impact was no bigger than a coin, but the force behind it was like a hammer hitting an egg. The sound that filled the arena was not what anyone expected. Instead of a wet, crushing noise, there was a sharp crack, like breaking stone echoing off the walls. The crowd fell silent as the impossible happened before their eyes. Kral Thon's skull split apart under the focused power of Jin Woo's strike bones that could stop plasma weapons and energy blades cracked instantly. The champion's brain was destroyed in a fraction of a second, and green blood began flowing down his face like a waterfall, for a moment that seemed to last. Forever the mighty warrior stood frozen in place. His four massive arms were still reaching toward Jin Woo, and his mouth was open in surprise. His black eyes rolled back, showing only white, and his legs began to shake like trees in a storm. Then the 9-foot giant crashed backward onto the arena sand with a sound like a building falling down. Dust exploded around his body as 20,000 pounds of muscle and bone hit the ground. His forearms spread out wide and never moved again. Kral Thon, the destroyer champion of 3-star systems, killer of 200 warriors, was dead before his back touched the sand complete, and total silence filled the massive arena. 20,000 alien spectators sat frozen in their seats, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Some had their mouths hanging open. Others were rubbing their eyes, thinking they had imagined the whole thing. The betting displays flickered and went dark as their computers crashed, trying to process odds that should have been impossible. The holographic screens showing the fight replay kept glitching, because the recording systems could not handle what they had captured. Jin Woo slowly pulled his hand free from the dead champion's skull and wiped the green blood on his torn shirt. His movements were calm and controlled, like he had just done something as normal as brushing his teeth. He looked down at Kral Thon's body with no emotion on his face. The massive corpse lay still in the sand with arms and legs spread. Wide green blood pooled around the shattered head, and the champion's eyes stared sightlessly at the purple sky above. The most feared warrior in 3-star systems had been reduced to nothing more than dead meat. Jin Woo turned slowly to face the crowd of stunned aliens. His dark eyes swept across thousands of faces that showed fear, confusion, and disbelief. Many creatures were pressing back into their seats, trying to get as far away from the human as possible. Some aliens were already running for the exits. The arena guards stood like statues with their weapons hanging uselessly at their sides. They had been prepared to drag away Jin Woo's broken body after the fight was over. Instead, they were staring at their dead champion and wondering how such a thing could be possible. Vorth, the arena master, was the first to find his voice, but it came out as a whisper instead of his usual booming roar. "That is impossible," he said to no one in particular. "Humans cannot do that. Humans are weak." But the evidence lay bleeding in the sand before him. Jin Woo finally spoke, and his voice carried clearly through the silent arena, despite being quiet and calm. "Anyone else want to try?" he asked the crowd. His words were simple, but they hit the aliens like physical blows. Several creatures in the front rows actually fell backwards over their seats. Others began making high-pitched noises of fear. Some species started praying to their gods in languages that sounded like screaming. The humans stood alone in the center of the arena, surrounded by 20,000 aliens who had come to watch him die for their entertainment. Instead, they had witnessed the death of their greatest champion at the hands of what they thought was the weakest creature. In the galaxy, news cameras that had been recording the fight for broadcast across multiple star systems kept rolling. The footage would be seen by billions of beings within hours. Every major world would know that a human had killed Kral Thon. With a single blow, military leaders would analyze the video frame by frame. Scientists would study human anatomy with new respect and growing fear. Politicians would call emergency meetings to discuss what this meant for the balance of power in the galaxy. But right now, in this moment, Jin Woo was just a young man standing over his fallen enemy. He thought about his grandfather, who had taught him that true strength came not from anger or hatred, but from the will to protect what mattered. The old man had been right as always. The crowd was starting to panic now, as the reality of what they had seen began to sink in. Aliens were pushing and fighting each other to get to the exits. Some were trampling smaller species in their rush to escape the orderly. Entertainment had become chaos and terror. Through it all, Jin Woo stood perfectly still in the center of the arena. His clothes were torn and bloody, his face was bruised and swollen, but his eyes remained calm and focused. He had done what he needed to do, and now he would face whatever came next. The age of thinking humans were weak was ending. The age of respecting human strength was about to begin. And it had started with one man who refused to die quietly for alien entertainment security forces. Were finally starting to move, but they approached Jin Woo very carefully with their weapons ready. Nobody wanted to be the next one to test what this human could do. The creature who had seemed so harmless just minutes ago was now the most dangerous. Being in the arena, Jin Woo watched them come closer and smiled slightly. He wondered what his grandfather would think of this moment. The old man had always said that sometimes a warrior had to remind the world why their people should be left in. Peace mission accomplished. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within 3 hours of Kral Thon death, every major world had received the footage. Every news network, every military base, every government building was playing the same impossible video over and over again. A human had killed the greatest warrior in 3 star systems with one strike. On the planet Zerion 9, alien military commanders gathered in their war room to watch the recording for the 20th time. General Vax, a veteran of 40 campaigns, stared at the screen with growing disbelief. His 6 eyes could track movements faster than most species, but even he struggled to follow Jin Woo's strike. Slow it down again. He ordered his technicians, make it 10 times slower. Video played again, showing Jin Woo's hand moving like a weapon toward Kralthon's skull. Even at 1/10 normal speed, the strike was almost too fast to see. The computer analysis showed that the human had generated more force per square inch than their best military weapons. That should be impossible, General Vax muttered. His scales were turning pale with worry. We need to study human anatomy immediately. Find out how many more of them can do this. Similar meetings were happening on hundreds of worlds. Alien scientists were pulling up old research files about human physiology that had been ignored for decades. Military leaders were asking uncomfortable questions about the humans in their slave labor forces. Politicians were beginning to panic on the prison ship where Jin Woo was being held. The other human captives looked at him with a mixture of amazement and hope. Most had been slaves for years, beaten down until they believed they really were as weak as the aliens claimed. But seeing one of their own destroy a galactic champion changed everything. How did you do that? Asked Yun Woo, an older man who had been captured while exploring the Outer Rim. His wife Min Jung and their teenage daughter, So Young, crowded close to hear. The answer. They had watched their people be humiliated for so long that Jin Woo victory felt like a miracle. Jin Woo sat quietly in his cell, thinking about how to explain. He remembered his grandfather teaching him about Earth and why humans were different from most other species. Our world made us strong. He finally said, every day was a fight to survive. He told them about Earth, heavy gravity that built dense bones and powerful muscles. He explained how thin air in the mountains made human. Hearts and lungs work harder than other species could imagine. He described the dangerous predators and harsh weather that forced humans to become tough survivors. We are not weak. Jin Woo continued, his voice growing stronger. We just let them think. We are. Every world we come from has things trying to kill us. We learned to fight, or we died. That made us different from species that evolved on easier worlds. The other humans listened with growing excitement as Jin Woo explained their true nature. They had been told for so long that they were inferior that many had started to believe it. But hearing the truth from someone who had just proven human strength made them remember who they really were. Min Young spoke up with tears in her eyes. Father used to tell stories about Earth warriors who could fight impossible battles. He said humans were survivors who never gave up. I thought those were just fairy tales. They were not fairy tales, so Young said firmly, looking at Jin Woo with new respect. They were history. Word began spreading through human settlements across the galaxy. Slaves whispered the story while working in mines and factories. Prisoners scratched pictures of the fight on their cell walls. Free humans in remote colonies started walking with their heads held high for the first time in years. On the mining world of Kepler 186, a human named Tae Hyun was working in the deep tunnels when he heard about Kralthon death. He had been a slave for 3 years, enduring daily beatings from the alien overseers who enjoyed hurting humans for sport, but now something had changed inside him. When Overseer Grex came to kick him like he did every day, Tae Hyun stood up instead of staying on the ground. Grex was surprised because humans always cowered when he approached. The alien raised his clawed hand to strike, but Tae Hyun caught his wrist and twisted. The sound of breaking bone echoed through the tunnel. Other human slaves stopped working and stared as their tormentor fell to the ground screaming. Tae Hyun looked at his own hands in amazement. He had always been strong from the heavy lifting but had never realized just how strong. Until this moment. More overseers came running, but they found 300 angry humans waiting for them. The slaves had finally remembered that they outnumbered their captors by 20-1. Within hours, the humans controlled the entire mining operation. Similar uprisings were beginning on dozens of worlds. On the water world of Proxima 7, a former teacher named Su Jin organized the human population into a resistance movement. She had studied military history before being captured and knew tactics that the aliens had never seen before, using knowledge from Earth. Ancient wars, she led coordinated strikes against alien control centers. The humans moved fast and struck hard, using their superior endurance and pain tolerance to outlast enemies who were used to easier fights. The rebellion succeeded so completely that alien colonists began evacuating in panic back on the prison ship. Jin Woo had become something more than a prisoner. He was a symbol of what humans could achieve when they stopped pretending to be weak. Alien guards no longer entered his cell. Without full battle armor, and even then they stayed as far away as possible. Representatives from major galactic governments came to speak with him, treating him like an ambassador rather than a slave. They offered him money territory, entire star systems, if he would help control the growing human uprising. But Jin Woo had learned wisdom from his grandfather, who taught him that true victory was not about conquest, but about freedom. Give us our rights, he told them simply. Treat humans as equals, not as slaves or entertainment. We do not want your empires. We just want to live in peace. However, if you keep trying to hurt us, you will learn what real warriors can do. The alien diplomats exchanged worried glances. They had built their civilizations on the assumption that humans were harmless workers and servants. Now they were discovering that they had been keeping sleeping predators in their cities and on their worlds. Emergency sessions were called in the Galactic Council for the first time. In 300 years, ancient species that had ruled space for millennia found themselves negotiating with creatures they had dismissed as worthless. The vote was swift and unanimous. Humans would be granted full citizenship rights across all member worlds. The age of human slavery was ending not through war or conquest, but through one man who had shown the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. Jin Woo victory in the arena had awakened something that had been sleeping in the human spirit. Across the stars, his grandfather would have been proud. 6 months had passed since Jin Woo crushed Kralthon's skull in the arena, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The video of that impossible fight had been watched by over 50 billion beings, making it the most viewed recording in Galactic history. What started as one-man moment of defiance had become a revolution that shook every star system. Human slaves across the galaxy had stopped accepting abuse from their alien masters. When overseers tried to beat them, the humans fought back. With devastating effectiveness, their Earth-trained bodies, designed for heavy gravity and dangerous environments, proved superior to creatures from easier worlds. On the Forge world of Kepler 442b, Tai Hyun led a group of 300 human workers in taking control of the entire orbital manufacturing station. When alien security forces tried to stop them, they discovered that humans could move and fight in ways no other species could match. The humans used their superior endurance to fight. For 18 hours straight, while their enemies collapsed from exhaustion, they showed pain, tolerance that shocked aliens who were used to opponents surrendering after minor injuries. The revolution succeeded in just 6 hours. The space station, that had been a prison for human slaves, became a symbol of human liberation, broadcasting messages of freedom to other worlds and coordinating resistance movements across multiple star systems. On the ocean world of Proxima 7, former teacher, Su Jin had organized the human population into an unstoppable force. She remembered the military tactics she had studied on Earth and adapted them for fighting against technologically superior enemies. Using strategies from ancient human wars, she led coordinated strikes that confused and overwhelmed alien defenders. The humans fought like they had evolved for war, which in many ways they had. Earth's harsh environment had created natural soldiers who could adapt to any battlefield. The aliens had never faced enemies who could learn so quickly or fight so creatively. Within 3 months, every alien colony on Proxima 7 had been abandoned. The humans did not chase them or seek revenge. They simply wanted to be left.